China didn't release statements, they released images. No grand announcement, no coordinated reveal, no carefully scripted briefing. Just a silent drop into public archives, high-resolution frames, spectral maps, multispectral composites, raw pixel data streaming into open portals like an afterthought. But the astronomers who pulled those files down, they didn't see routine captures. They saw revelation. Revelation of the one truth Western agencies had buried under layers of blurred releases and delayed processing. Because China's new images of 3I/ATLAS, taken from vantage points NASA claimed were compromised, don't just clarify details, they expose the entire structure. They show an interstellar object with internal asymmetries that defy natural formation, coma densities inconsistent with outgassing models, tail alignments that shift without gravitational cause, and surface features that reflect light in ways no icy nucleus should. And the most unsettling part, nothing about the object appeared artificial. And yet, everything did. As if 3I/ATLAS wasn't merely responding to solar wind, it was structuring itself around it, structuring itself for the moment only certain eyes would capture it clearly. China's images don't introduce doubt. They confirm the one we've been suppressing, the one we feared since perihelion: concealment. The visibility is everything, and the visibility was controlled. On July 1st, 2025, the Atlas survey in Chile flagged the object that became 3I/Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar comet to cross our system. But from the initial orbital solutions, something registered wrong. It wasn't just unbound, it was precisely unbound, exhibiting excess velocities near 58 kilometers per second, carving through the inner system on a path that grazed Mars' orbit without perturbation. Western assets mobilized immediately: Hubble snapshots, JWST spectra, Mars orbiters repositioned, spacecraft like Psyche and Lucy retasked for opportunistic imaging, all building a mosaic of continuous coverage. And then, as the comet approached its critical perihelion phase, the releases grew sparse, not by failure, but by curation. Blurred composites, low-resolution stacks, delayed high-definition frames, processing backlogs cited amid unrelated priorities. And in that engineered window of reduced clarity, 3I/ATLAS passed closest to the Sun. The exact phase when a comet exposes its deepest composition through maximal sublimation, jet eruptions, dust entrainment ratios, coma stratification, nucleus rotation signatures, everything essential to classify what it truly is. A natural comet would have nothing to obscure. An anomalous one would have everything to refine. The West diffused its gaze. China sharpened theirs. Orbital assets around Mars, ground-based facilities in the Eastern Hemisphere, dedicated campaigns from Tianwen-1 and supporting networks remained fully operational during the Western delays. No processing queues, no resolution throttling, no selective downsampling. The Martian vantage was optimal, stable, and perfectly positioned for uninterrupted high-resolution imaging. While leading Western releases showed softened edges and averaged pixels, China captured sharp nuclear profiles, coma boundary definitions, tail filament separations, multi-filter contrasts, dust polarization maps, brightness gradients time-stamped with sub-second accuracy, every frame calibrated against stellar standards, every dataset streamed through secure yet public channels into global repositories. And what they revealed was not what Western summaries prepared the world to expect post-perihelion. The coma didn't just expand, it stratified asymmetrically. The tail didn't just extend, it bifurcated with precision. The brightness didn't just peak, it modulated in patterns. The surface didn't just reflect, It scattered with anomalous efficiency. China didn't supplement the record. China redefined it. To grasp what China imaged, we must grasp the coma itself, an envelope of sublimated volatiles and entrained dust that envelops an active comet. But 3I/ATLAS didn't envelop passively. It organized, it layered, it emitted in sequences. From August onward, JWST had detected elevated CO2 fractions, minimal water signatures, a composition hinting at formation in cold, distant environs. But during the perihelion window, when solar flux intensified, China resolved internal density waves, brightness oscillations, structural filaments within the coma, a reconfiguration of dust distribution. It wasn't stochastic ejection. It was ordered. And to resolve that order, you needed uncompromised resolution every frame. China delivered it. The West withheld it. When higher clarity finally emerged from Western sources, the timeline was fragmented. The comet had traversed millions of kilometers, enough to degrade retrospective models, but China's frames bridged it seamlessly. And when analysts overlaid the nuclear profiles, the verdict was stark. The interstellar visitor wasn't evolving like a comet shaped by random thermodynamics. It was evolving like an object optimizing its exposure. This detail carries weight beyond drama. Every photon China resolved traversed cooled detectors, adaptive optics pipelines, cross-calibrated arrays, stellar reference alignments, polarization filters tuned to dust scattering, light curve deconvolutions against instrumental response. All while Western flagship releases remained conspicuously softened. And the outcome? China produced the sharpest nuclear constraints on an interstellar comet during perihelion passage. The data revealed coma layering inconsistent with isotropic outgassing, photometric modulations aligned with rotational periods too stable for fractured nuclei, dust polarization fractions exceeding solar system norms, nuclear albedo profiles suggesting compact rather than porous surfaces, astrometric refinements that tightened orbital hyperbolic excess by orders of magnitude. This wasn't merely superior imaging. This was unfiltered imaging. And in that clarity, China documented the moment Western narratives obscured. The moment 3I/ATLAS displayed its unmasked form. When Western high-resolution frames eventually surfaced, the contrast was undeniable. Not to the comet, to our collective view of it. Weeks of reduced clarity during a rapidly evolving interstellar object's solar passage is not a delay. It is a filter. Without China's archives, the world would have accepted smooth reconstructions of the coma's internal structure. The tail's fine filaments, the brightness anomalies, the surface reflectance quirks, the subtle polarization signals. But the sharpest element, the Western composites, when compared, did not match natural evolutionary paths without invoked uncertainties. The obscured periods left gaps too convenient to dismiss, and every independent analysis converged on the same implication. Whatever 3I/ATLAS is, it does not conform to passive interstellar debris. And the restraint from Western sources, the measured phrasing from agencies, grew palpable. Because the one thing they could not refute, China could display. When China uploaded the perihelion series to international databases, researchers worldwide accessed them before any interpretive overlay. No accompanying narrative, no contextual framing, just pristine data, the purest currency in astronomy. Within days, orbital elements were refined globally. Independent institutions processed the frames. Spectral decompositions ran unchecked. The nuclear size bounds tightened dramatically. The hyperbolic trajectory solidified with exquisite precision. But the deepest revelation lay in this. The coma's internal stratification wasn't artifact. It was organized, directional, almost adaptive, a configuration tuned to solar interaction. The reflectance anomalies the images showed weren't noise, they were consistent. 3I/ATLAS presented differently in unfiltered light. Once Chinese and Western datasets were integrated, something profound emerged. The ultraviolet mappings from Hubble, the infrared from JWST, the visible geometry from China's high-resolution sequences, the polarization from ground support, the dust dynamics from scattered light models, the rotational constraints, the compositional overlays, all coalesced into one unbroken record. And that unified record depicts a CO2-rich comet that defies typical activation timelines, a brightness evolution exceeding thermal predictions, a tail morphology that reconfigures during peak flux, a nucleus too reflective for its estimated mass, a dust polarization far beyond norms, a trajectory with improbable stability, an object modulating its emissions faster than sublimation alone allows. This is not a relic from another system. This is an enigma. And China's images confirmed what many suspected. We were not observing an inert interstellar comet. We were observing a structured interstellar object. China's frames don't allege artifice. They don't invoke speculation. They don't dramatize. They simply present the clarity the West deferred. 3I/ATLAS displayed features differently in sharp resolution. It stratified when resolution was high. It modulated its tail when pixels were crisp. It revealed surface details that blur in downsampled views. It scattered light in patterns that soften under averaging. It aligned its coma in ways that diffuse in composites. The concern wasn't that the comet posed risk. The concern was that it exhibited coherence, organization, precision, and China's images captured it uncompromised. This wasn't merely an interstellar comet. It was an interstellar anomaly. And whatever 3I/ATLAS truly represents, it benefits from selective clarity. And it knows when the view is unobstructed. In the end, it wasn't the spectra that unsettled the community. It wasn't the brightness curves, or the impossible stratifications, or the reflective anomalies. It was the contrast. The contrast between diffused Western releases and the sharpness from the East that pierced it. Because China didn't just image something unusual. They imaged something the world was guided away from seeing clearly. Something that passed through perihelion with features that sharpen only in high fidelity, reconfigured its coma when resolution peaked, and then receded, looking precisely as models required once clarity normalized. For months, experts maintained that 3I/ATLAS was a comet, a primordial wanderer from distant stars, nothing extraordinary. But comets don't optimize for resolution. They don't stratify their envelopes in the exact frames of maximal detail. They don't modulate reflectance with observational fidelity. They don't reveal internal structures only when imaged without compromise. And they don't align polarizations the moment unfiltered eyes engage. China's images didn't generate questions. They answered them. They answered that the object we studied as a benign interstellar comet was presenting selectively, something that structured its emissions, organized its dust, and refined its appearance like a system calibrated beyond mere physics. The unease was never that 3I/ATLAS threatened collision. The unease was that it was not inert, not chaotic, not merely transiting, that it was exhibiting patterns and waiting for the right observational window to exhibit them fully. And when that window opened, the global view was fractionated, except for one perspective. China's frames completed the unbroken sequence. And that seamless clarity is the most profound element. Because when you examine it, the structure isn't random. It's intricate, coherent, like a rotational stabilization, like a dust entrainment sequence, like an adaptation. Every detail the West softened, China resolved. Every anomaly downplayed, China illuminated. Every question whispered in private forums has now entered open discourse. If 3I/ATLAS presents differently depending on observational fidelity, then what exactly is resolving us in return? Because that's the essence. Not extraterrestrial craft, not conjecture, not sensation, but something quieter and more profound. We are examining an object that does not present uniformly. It presents with precision, one that has no requirement to clarify itself equally, one that leveraged periods of reduced resolution to display refined structure, coherent form, unmasked detail, and only one perspective captured it fully. For the first time in interstellar astronomy, humanity is divided not by theory, but by resolution. One archive holds the uncompromised view, and the cosmos is not pausing for the rest to align. So now, as 3I/ATLAS accelerates outward through the solar system, departing, reshaping its envelope under fading solar influence, we confront a reality that can no longer be diffused. We didn't just image an interstellar object. We imaged an interstellar coherence. Perhaps ancient, perhaps primordial, perhaps explicable, perhaps something else, but coherence all the same. And no matter the final interpretation, one truth rises above all. The universe observes back, and it just demonstrated it knows when the view is clear. If this revelation has you reevaluating what truly crossed our system, stay engaged now. Subscribe so you don't miss what archives and observatories release next. Activate notifications, because the next unfiltered dataset could redefine everything we believe possible. And share your thoughts in the comments. Do you accept 3I/ATLAS as merely a comet, or the first structured interstellar phenomenon humanity has ever resolved in detail?